Welcome to ET with GOTB. Arsenal crash out of the Champions League and Manchester City find a last gasp winner. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. That was excellent timing.
Well done, Oscar.
Right, we are back with loads to chat about today, and we have a cat in a box in the middle of us for those of you who are listening. We're hoping he stays there. It's where he spends most of his day, but it is, of course, Oscar, because he is the chatty one, the one interested in everything we're doing. Percy is asleep on the couch. Anyway, we have covered loads of games this weekend in loads of different competitions. I don't know about you, but I'm knackered.
I don't know where I am right now.
I have a banging headache. I was so stressed yesterday. We had such a trip getting home from Belfast.
I was a bit of a doofus.
Did you know there are 2 airports in Belfast? We did, and still didn't realise Sophie had booked us home from a different one. So we rocked up at the wrong airport and then had to make a mad dash across Belfast, which wasn't exactly fun. But you know what? I wasn't even stressed during that. It was the getting off the plane and getting to the train and missing the train and getting home from the train. Getting home late. I needed a shower. I needed a prep. Gone to bed at wet hair. It's completely frizzy. Like, I'm just all over the place. But no, we had you in Lyon on Saturday for the Champions League, while I did WSL 2 between Charlton Athletic and Birmingham City, and I got my trophy lift.
You did.
You
were very stressed.
I was. I went up to Manchester then, and you came back to London the next morning. I did Manchester versus Liverpool in WSL. You did Tottenham versus London City. And then we both went across.
Flew to Belfast. Ready for the under-17s Euros. Yeah, it's been a weekend. I think on Sunday I did 3 countries in one day. So that was a lot.
Very impressive. Needless to say, it does mean we have plenty to talk about.
Yep.
So we are going to obviously look at this weekend's WSL results, but perhaps I'd like you to keep it a bit shorter, a bit tighter, if possible, because we've also then got WSL 2 to look at. We've got the Champions League, and as you said, the under-17s Euros to touch on as well. You will give me a player of the week from the many games or the many things that happened this weekend, and you'll shine a spotlight on something as well.
Yes.
Okay, good. Confident as ever. Before we get into that, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening to this podcast, so you do not miss an episode, and also make sure you're following us across all of our socials. We are at Girls on the Ball on everything. Right, should we crack on with WSL results?
I think that also the problem when you ask me all those questions every week is I have a plan, and I sit down, and then you ask me the question, and the plan goes straight out of my head, and that's why it always sounds very uncertain.
I think that's your way of pretending like you have a plan.
I have a plan.
You don't actually have a plan, but you try and act like you did the whole time, but that it's somehow my fault for asking you the question that I ask you every week. But yeah, sure.
It is your fault.
Just take a sip of me tea.
Don't rise going to the annoying wife next to you.
All right, WSL results. Now, I didn't include the Arsenal-Leicester City game, which was midweek, purely because it wasn't part of this match day, and I can't remember all 7 goal scores off the top of my head. Anyway, but the results for this weekend are as follows. Manchester United 1, Brighton 1. Cankovic and Schuller with the goals there. Manchester City 1, Liverpool 0. Kanak with the last gasp winner. Tottenham 2, London City 1. Gaupset, Holt and Kennedy. Leicester 1, Chelsea 3, O'Brien, Kerr and James with the brace, and Aston Villa 0, West Ham 2, Ueki and Puibal with the goals. There was a few last-minute gasp goals across a couple of games this weekend. Manchester United, Manchester City, Alana Kennedy got her one back in the 90 plus, and all the action happened in like the final 4 minutes at the Aston Villa West Ham game. So
I did. I had a joke with the London City press officer because I was doing floor managing that day, which means I'd do the interviews afterwards as well. And I had to do the super flash on the pitch, which means you go literally straight from final whistle into the interview. And I had all my questions written down, and then Kennedy scored. And I was like, you know, nothing against whatever you might turn around here, but please, not today. Just not right now. When I have to go and do a flash interview. And if it all changes in the last 90 seconds, it's just the worst because you have to rethink everything.
Also, we don't always do super flash. We do the interviews pretty sharpish after full time, generally within 5-10 minutes. Super flash only happens sometimes depending on broadcast and when they need it.
So this one, because it was only WSL, it was just the world feed really. So they get the super flash one. So that's why I was straight on the pitch at the end.
So rather than them bringing you the player, you basically get brought on and you go find the player and interview them on the pitch.
The other very stressful thing is I need more hands. So as the super flash, you also have to give the player the match award. When you've got your phone in one hand with the questions, your mic in the other hand to ask the question and be heard. I had a very funny one with Chloe Kelly a few weeks back when I had no one to help me and no one to relay me the trophy. So I literally had it under my arm. And as I was asking him the last two questions, like, how the hell am I going to do this? What, like, I don't know what to do here. So I just like dropped my phone on the floor, made Chloe giggle. I was like, here's the award. I had nothing else I could do to get it to her. So
yeah, it's quite fun, quite the juggle. Anyway, let's look at how the WSL table looks after those results. Manchester City maintain their relatively comfortable lead on 52 points, 6 clear of Chelsea, who are on 46. In second, Arsenal are in third on 41, with 3 games in hand, with United in fourth on 40 points. If Arsenal win one of those games in hand, that will be Champions League wrapped up. So it is out of United's hands. I think it was out of United's hands last week anyway. But yeah, that draw not really doing them any favours. And down the bottom, with their heavy loss to Arsenal midweek, Leicester confirmed their position at the bottom of the table and their spot in the playoffs as well. So that was a very important win. We're going to get to the Manchester City one, but it was a very important win for Manchester City. Let's look at the other Manchester team who kicked off the WSL action on Saturday. It was Manchester United versus Brighton. And as I said, we're going to try and keep this shorter and sharper than usual. My kind of key takeaways from that were Brighton are kind of flying high at the moment. They've never done the double and beaten 2 Manchester teams in the same season. That's, continued, but they almost bloody did. Started very well. The goal came from a mistake at the back from Manchester United. Manchester United's midfield maybe just lacking a little bit.
I think Manchester United are just lacking
generally lacking a little bit.
I do think there needs to be a question mark over Fallon Tullis-Joyce's distribution as well. I think that's gone a little bit downhill, and probably needs to look at that over the summer in terms of the way that she can impact the play from the back and the build up from the back. And I know traditionally Man United have maybe gone a bit longer sometimes or relied on that long pass from Letizia occasionally, but I think it's a part of the game that really needs to,
especially Brighton were pressing as well.
Yeah,
so.
And when you have high pressing teams, you can't afford to make mistakes like that one. And I mean, every team is doing it. You've seen Lisa Coppett against
Brighton
Arsenal. Brighton do it as well. They almost handed Manchester City 4 goals last week because of it. It feels like last year. But I just think, they're just a bit all at sea at the moment.
It must be hard, I'm not making excuses, but, when you know that Champions League spots are out of your hands, you've not really got anything to play for, you've had a very long, tired season with a thin squad and multiple competitions, to maybe G yourself up. Not an excuse, but is that part of it?
It wasn't all that out of their hands. You give up another 2 points as you had the week before, and you get those 2 points, and suddenly you're making Arsenal really stress about their final 4 of the games in the season when they're really tired and got a lot of pressure on their shoulders. Or you're making Chelsea stress a bit more than, having to at least take it down to that final game of the season. And they've just let these 2 games slip, I think.
Well, Leah Schuller got her first goal in a Manchester United shirt, so that's something to be positive about.
Yeah, I think there does. I really hope there's investment over the summer. I think there needs to be a bit of a rethink. It's a real shame. It's often what we say about teams who qualify for major tournaments as well, and not being able to back that up it makes it really hard, because I think the good thing about Manchester United is the badge will always pull players in, and given that the pool of top class women's football teams in Europe isn't that big in the grand scheme of things, players will always come and play for Manchester United because it is a good, a living, and it's good to play in the top league in
it's a
the
big
world,
club.
and it's a big club. But I do think that it's a massive missed opportunity to build on that quarterfinal run.
Brighton, on the other hand, are having an enjoyable end to the season. It's becoming a bit of a theme. Obviously beating Manchester City, getting the point at Manchester United. They now face Arsenal midweek before their FA Cup semi-final against Liverpool. I just spoke to Dario Vidicic in the press conference there, and, I did ask him, he spoke a little bit about that Manchester United game and saying, look, there were some situations we were in that we've never been in before, and perhaps we have to go through those moments to experience them, which a lot of managers talk about when they do things like that. And I said to him, something you have experienced is beating Arsenal in the late stages of the season. So is that something you can draw on? Is it too far? Like, is it last season? Is it not something you really think about? And he said, look, it was last season, they looked a bit different, we looked a bit different. We're not going to draw too much on that. We're going to look at how we've been playing, how Arsenal have been playing, etc. But I did say, surely it's just another notch in your confidence after your performances against the two Manchester teams that, you're going out with your shoulders back a little bit more. And he said, you know what? Sometimes in the tunnel, you can almost have lost games a little bit in the tunnel. You're going to pull focus from us, Oscar. Hold on, is he just doing a stretch? No, he's completely leaving the box. So that means Oscar's leaving the room. I was making a really good point as well, and you've just interrupted that. Excuse me. Goodbye, my boy. Ciao.
You're going to include that?
I can do. Yeah. Saves me editing it. I was saying, about Dario, and he said, you know what, sometimes actually you can almost put yourself a goal down in the tunnel if you think suddenly they're looking a little bit taller than you are. You're not looking up, you're not looking them in the eyes, and sometimes that can actually play almost mind games. And he was saying actually, being able to go out with your heads up and your chest proud and the confidence makes a massive difference, especially in this league. So it will be definitely an interesting game midweek for us.
Yeah, I don't really want to draw on comparisons to last year that much, I think.
I can't help it because it's the same bleeding
I know it's the same bleeding teams, but I do think Arsenal are very much switched off. And while they're exhausted, I'm not sure they're going to be tuned in because, they know that if they know that they're 3 points away from Europe, first of all. That's the first thing to tick off the list, and to do it as early as possible rather than bringing it down to the final day. That would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But also, they've still got so much to play for. I know Manchester City won, but it is still the case that if Arsenal win all 3 of their games up to that point,
keeps the pressure on.
It comes down to that final day, and if there was like a disaster
at
West Ham,
it's happened before.
I mean,
they've drawn.
Football is football, right? And football brings up wild and wonderful narratives. And while it's incredibly unlikely at this point, if you keep yourself in the game, you're in it till the very end.
Absolutely. Speaking of Manchester City, I was at their game against Liverpool at the Joy Stadium. Packed out stadium, lots of flags. Lads, if you're listening, just turn the volume down a touch, right? I thought I was getting old. No. I thought I was getting old, and I spoke to some youths, some young people, and I was like, is it me? Or are you like absolutely deafened out there?
That might be the oldest thing you've ever said.
Yeah, and they were like, we had to come inside because it's so loud. It's kind of like painful loud. Love the vibes, great crack. According to them, it's the best experience in the WSL. But just turn it down a wee bit.
I had that in London City the week before.
Yeah, but London City is because you're standing next to the big speakers.
No.
Manchester City doesn't matter where you go.
We had like a proper rave going on, and I was trying to think of my questions, and I was being very old and was like, I can't.
I'm not doing the age thing because I asked young 20-year-olds and they were like, it's so friggin' loud, I need to go inside. But anyway, besides the point.
You said Moonbeam was dancing to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, right before the teams came out as well, which I enjoyed.
Cool cookie Moonbeam.
This was, Gareth Taylor returning to the Joy Stadium, which pre-match he'd said he was really looking forward to, that he was looking forward to seeing, some players and some staff members that he hadn't seen in ages and stuff like that. So that was quite nice. But tell you what, Liverpool started really well, and I would imagine there were a few Manchester City fans who were a wee bit nervous during that. I sounded like I was from Northern Ireland there. I spent a wee bit too much time. But I'd say they were pretty nervous in those, I was going to say opening few minutes, opening kind of 20 odd minutes or so. I thought Liverpool had the better the first half, but I'd say you were bloody nervous right up until the 91st minute when Rebecca Kanaka herself flying in for that header.
Yeah. I think Liverpool started so well. I still don't really know how Chillag didn't get that header on target.
Chillag, O'Sullivan, Holland,
O'Sullivan
Fisk.
had a really good chance. Yeah, Kerry Holland. It was just like that final clinical touch for Liverpool, but they were all over them in those opening stages. I remember because I was at the London City Tottenham game, and so I couldn't watch it at the time. But I was watching the stats. And I was like, geez, I showed it to like,
you
the other
messaged
people
me
around me. I was like, Jesus, those stats were insane. And then you messaged me and saying, like around I think 85 minutes, saying City are going to win this because you.
I messaged it earlier than that, but yeah.
Find a winner here, and it kind of had that narrative about it, And I think that's what you have to prove to yourself as champions. Is sometimes it's really easy, and you can get games, as Manchester City have so often done this season, done in the first half. But actually, the bit that really shows the core part of your developmentality is being able to get it over the line at the last minute at the death.
Yeah.
Not pretty, stressful, but it's a different level of character, I think.
And I think as well, Manchester City were creating and they were missing. And, you know, Falk was pulling off some unbelievable saves.
She was superb until
and I
wasn't.
I can understand, you know, thinking, even players thinking, Christ, is this not going to happen for us? But it never felt like they felt like that. Like Carolyn was, you know, every time they get a corner and they'd be geeing up the crowd, like they were feeding off the atmosphere as opposed to kind of feeling it as pressure. And I think that's what stood them in the end. Rebecca Knack had all the time in the world to head that ball home, and unfortunate for Falk and the bounce, and it was awkward and she had it and she didn't, and that'll be disappointing for her. But yeah, unbelievable scenes when they scored that goal.
I think it was a brilliant header and run from Knack, but everything about the defensive side of it was missing
Lacking
for Liverpool, from Alice Bergstrom completely losing her in the build-up to allow her to get in and make that diving header to the Falk fumble. I think, unfortunate for the goalkeeper, because I think she would have been nailed on for player of the match.
That's literally what I said up front. I said to Chloe, I was like, just one thing can just switch it from player. If they'd drawn that game, I think she would have got player of the match. But it also meant that it allowed some time for Laura Coombs to come on and make her last home appearance, because she announced that she is retiring.
Yep.
From football.
We're into a goodbye season.
We are. And it's always nice that players get their opportunity to say goodbye to fans and to get minutes as well at home before that happens. So that was really nice to see. But it was wild scenes at full time for Manchester City, as Bunny Shaw and Lauren Hemp and all of them said, you know, we left it late, but we got the job done. That's the main thing for City. And they can go into that. Do you know what, though? They could be going into that West Ham game champions already. So it's all over to Arsenal now. The pressure swings back to the Gunners.
That's what I mean about it. It's all to play for, right?
How exciting. I think Liverpool will be pleased with the performance, frustrated they didn't get points. And, you know, I saw some Liverpool fans a little bit frustrated that some players maybe could have been protected a bit more ahead of their FA Cup semi-final. Kerry Holland went off with an injury. I think it looked like cramp. She couldn't continue. I'm hoping it is like a dead leg or cramp. But
I don't think anything
will stop Kerry Holland.
Okay, from getting ready for that semi-final and playing in that semi-final. I think she'd literally run through a brick wall if she had to.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I was at that one. You were at Tottenham, London City. How did that one pan out?
Tottenham were really, really good in the first half, I think. They had moments of loose control, but the way that they controlled the midfield, I think we saw the sparkle of Sinja go upset and what she brings to this Tottenham side. And I can only imagine, you know, next season, when she's properly settled. Reminder, she's only been there 2 months,
and she's young.
3 months. Really young, getting used to the physical element of the league as well, moving away from home. It takes a bit of time to settle, but I think we're starting to see what she really is about, and she's really about that driving momentum from the midfield area. When she's alongside the likes of Olivia Holt, you've talked about it before, how they attack in numbers, and they really just maraud forward and just like canter through the midfield. And they were doing that to London City. London City had no grip on the midfield area whatsoever in that first half. And they limited London City to a few chances maybe towards the end of the first half. They started to come back into it, but it was very much Tottenham's, in control. 2 delightful goals as well, very much in control. Maybe changed a little bit after the break, not too much, but I think London City learned how to
adapt,
deal with them a little bit more. They did lose Sangare quite early on, which meant Alana Kennedy came on into the midfield area. And Alana Kennedy, box-crashing midfielder right now, is just like the most ridiculous thing. She was their most dangerous player in that second half, I think.
It reminds me a bit of when you throw like a Millie Bright up front, you know, that kind of vibe.
She forced a really good stop from Lisa Kopp halfway through the second half. Tottenham had their chances as well. And then later on, she scored in the 90th minute. So she's like in her goal-scoring era.
Yeah.
But I think London City came back strong. I think they showed character to come back. Maybe left it a little too late to do so. Lisa Kopp was fantastic in this first goal. She's my goalkeeper of the week, I think, because she just made some absolutely stunning saves and stepped up when her team were flagging. I think the way about Tottenham play is they're so energetic and so full of energy that when those levels start to wane a bit, that's when they can find themselves on the back foot.
There's
and
no plan B.
That's the next step for them, is to get that fitness level up to be able to do it for 90 minutes, I think. But
I did message you during the game and I said this is a rogue punt, but I think Tottenham are going to win the World Sevens. Because I just think that energetic midfield front line,
they're going to have so much
marauding.
fun.
They're going to enjoy it, and it's short.
They're really embracing it. So I walked into the reception and there were like the World Sevens advertising cards as you walked in to pick one up in a leaflet to come and support them at the World Sevens and stuff. So they're really embracing the whole situation. But they're fun. They're in a good place. They have got their record points tally in the WSL, so with 1 game to go, so they could smash that in that final game against Brighton if they want to. They've got 5th place, I think, when they're talking about building or rebuilding under Martin Ho. The first year that's gone really well to plan. I know second year is always the hardest.
This is what I was going to say. Don't be letting us down now year 2.
But when you look at recruitment and everything that's been done, and yes, there's going to be a turnover in the summer. We already know 6 players are leaving, and so there will be more incoming. And I think they're in a good spot right now.
A team not necessarily in a good spot, Leicester. They had to face, God love them, Arsenal and then Chelsea. It's a lot for a team when they were fighting to not be in that playoff spot, which they are. And to be fair, 3-1 against Chelsea, not to be sniffed at, and to get a goal against Chelsea was good as well. It was always going to be a difficult game, and we spoke about how they needed to kind of reframe these last few games and how they needed to look at getting the most out of them with the playoff in mind. Conversely, Sam Kerr, I'm delighted for her that she managed to break that record. She's now the outright top goal scorer for Chelsea, something she deserves. She's been such a prolific striker for them in her time there, and I know she's had a bit of difficult time returning from injury, but to be able to do that with a game to spare, you wouldn't want to be trying to do that in your last game, would you? If it is her last game. But I do think that it was nice for her to do that, and LJ was classy as ever with some lovely goals.
I love players who come back to full fitness after a long injury and prove the doubters wrong. And you've had players do it before. You've had Viv Miedema, Beth Mead, and many others who have suffered the ACL injury, Alexia Putellas as well. And there's always big questions about whether they can ever reach the level that they were at before. And invariably, it might take some longer than others, but they do reach that peak form. Leah Williamson, again, comes back from an ACL, wins a European Championship and a Champions League final. So I think that's a really nice narrative for her to have as well, because Sam Kerr has been a phenomenal addition to this league. And if she is to go, it's going to be very sad when she does. And I remember when she first came in and everyone was like, because she had a few games where she had lots of chances but couldn't score.
Took her a while to find her
future. Is she
future.
really this big a deal? And it was just such a preemptive decision making about a player who's now gone on to do fantastic things. So pleased for her. Whatever happens during the summer, she's had this impact. In terms of Leicester, I think they were outplayed and Chelsea were the better team. But I think they can take so much from the fact that they kept it at 3-1.
They have to.
They're thinking about small things. It's been such a ridiculously hard week for them. That midweek game must have been so draining. So not just with the scoreline, but with obviously the impact of them being confirmed in 12th place.
Yeah, but also you've gone into that Arsenal game off the back of a 5-1 defeat. You're already feeling, and you know that this game is the game you have to win to try and keep that open. It's just a lot.
It's not like you have a lot of players to be able to fill in. You have to just keep going again and keep putting out basically the same starting 11 pretty much every time and just trying to find a way. I think they can take a lot from Shannon O'Brien's goal as well. Just the fact that they can score goals. She's been a great outlet for them. I know they've been, in total, been few and far between.
11, I think.
Just having that thing.
Yeah.
She scored against London City as well. So they've got 2 goals in their last 3 games. It gives them something to hold on to going into the game against Everton and then the playoff game the week later. I think this 2-week break for them is going to do them massive good as well. They can just rest and recover a bit before that final day of the season.
I think for Chelsea as well, with their FA Cup semi-final coming up, having Sam Kerr, back on the score sheet, having LJ in the form she's in, players like that, it could just make for a very, very interesting
And you
semi-final.
never know, because City, it depends what happens on Wednesday and on Saturday, I think. If Arsenal do come away with 6 points from those 2, then you never know what's just sitting in City's mind on Sunday afternoon, right? In terms of the league title is still very much at stake. So is just
very interesting.
interesting.
Speaking of long-time servants to Chelsea, Millie Bright, of course, announced her retirement with immediate effect. Obviously, she's been going through injury this season and struggled to get back. Always good when a player can do it on their terms. I know being injured isn't ideal. I think she said she'd been playing like injured for like 6 years or something ridiculous like that.
I think Millie was able to come to the decision about when to retire. And I think you can see from her interviews that she's pretty much done with playing and she's at peace with that. She seems to be very excited about what's coming next. She's still going to be very much involved in Chelsea. She's part of their Trusts and Foundations section, I think, as an ambassador. But she was also on the BBC talking about, going back into horses, and that was kind of her first love as well. So she's got a lot to look forward to, I think. I think being able to say goodbye properly is important as well. And especially now that all focus can be on a celebration at Stamford Bridge, because that result, they'll want to win it, of course. That's not saying anything, but it will be an end of season party, as it were.
They've got Champions League.
They've got Champions League. And then you never know, if they get to the FA Cup final, she could come away with another FA Cup.
What? What if you've retired? Do you still get one?
Yeah, she's still part of the playing squad for the season.
Even though she's retired from an immediate effect?
Yeah, she's still a member. She'll still, because she played in the FA Cup.
Oh, good.
I think.
Good.
She?
Yeah, good.
I reckon she'd still be eligible. Okay. I wouldn't see why not.
Would you go full kit? Would you?
No. I don't, unless the rules stipulate.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think she, at her peak, was amongst the top of the defenders in the world. And she's had a career to be
not a
very proud
bad
of.
old trophy haul, Millie Bright.
No, 20 domestic league trophies, a European Championships, a World Cup final.
Arnold Clark Golden Boot.
For the Barclays WSL OG as well. I think it's a good, fairly decent haul.
Don't forget our Donny Bell's days.
Yep.
All right, the final game of the weekend was Aston Villa versus West Ham on the Bank Holiday Monday. Do you know what, though? Villa seemed relatively comfortable in this one. Had the possession, had the chances, way more touch in the opposition box. They were creating, they couldn't take them. I mean, look, granted there were changes to the starting lineup, which was a bit of a surprise off the back of the press conference where she'd been saying, we're getting players back, it's great. And to be fair, Rachel Daly was back and did get some minutes, which was great. But, they're missing out on that back line, having to mess around the back line again wasn't ideal.
Do you know when I knew they weren't going to win that game?
When Ebony Salmon went 1v1 with the goalkeeper and didn't score?
That one, but then the follow-up and that header.
The triples.
And she literally, the goalkeeper was shading her, covering her. So she only probably saw it late and she just got there to deny Lynn Films. And I thought, West Ham have got at least a point out of this.
Well, West Ham got their goals at the death, both of them. Super efficient with a really low XG, very few chances created, and managed to come away with a 2-0 win.
Yeah, and it's the second week in a row.
It's 2 wins on the bounce.
Come away from home as well. Really,
they did not have a good record at home, I don't think, either. Away
from home, yeah. But I think it's a really positive sign for Rita to be able to start building on that for next season. Once they secured their safety, there was nothing to play for as such, but I think it's about foundation building.
They obviously have the last game of the season at the Chigwell Construction Stadium against Manchester City. They've also got the World Sevens.
They could decide the title if they played well.
They could have a hand in it if Arsenal don't slip up.
I'm not actually bigging up the title race. Manchester City are going to win the title, but I'm just saying that there are possibilities available, and football is football, and it sometimes goes a bit mad.
Well, I think a lot of us thought City were going to win it with a comfortable cushion. They still might, but they still might also win it by 2 points, 2 points, which you wouldn't have thought at a few months ago. Okay, in exciting leagues, let's chat about WSL 2, which delivered right until the death. These are the results of the final weekend. Charlton 0, Birmingham City 2, Crystal Palace 6, Portsmouth 1, Ipswich Town 2, Sunderland 1, Newcastle United 0, Durham 1, Nottingham Forest 0, Southampton 3, Sheffield United 0, Bristol City 4. And it means that Birmingham City finished on top with 44 points. You were finally right about Birmingham. Crystal Palace came in second on 44 points as well, but an inferior goal difference. So both of them automatically promoted to WSL next season. And it is Charlton in third on 42 points who will go into that playoff with Leicester, who started the day at the top of the table, which is such a sucker punch. And, they looked absolutely devastated on the pitch, understandably. But you got to be Come on, this isn't our only chance. Like, we have another chance here. We've got another life.
So I interviewed Amy Merrick's this morning on the Guardian Women's Football podcast.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert. Go and listen to it. I'm not going to say what she said, but I was saying beforehand, I think I said it in it. I was very, very thankful for her because my predictions at the beginning of the season when we did the predictions was that, like, Birmingham was going to win it. And then for a minute there, I thought, you're going to let me down. So gave her a giggle. Obviously, understandably, very pleased. I think, the drama of this league is ridiculous, and having that extra promotion place as well just added to it. Birmingham City are a very good team. They've invested a lot, and it's great to see them back at the top. And I think you can be so pleased for the likes of, like, Christy Harrison-Murray, who has been, they've stuck around that club for so long, and seen them through the ups and downs, and sort of been part of this rebuild before even Amy Merrick's got there to kind of start it off and try and get them back to the top. And it's always hard when you get relegated. You never know whether you're going to be able to get back up, whether the club will stop investment. Luckily for them, the owners at Birmingham didn't want to and very much believe in the women's team. But their season has been inconsistent. They lost 3-0 to Ipswich last week. God, like, you just can't predict this league, and to get it over the line. And I think having that war wound from last year as well, where they lost it on the final day, was such a big emotional driver for them to turn up at the Valley and to get it done.
I tell you what, though, the opening 20 odd minutes or so, I thought they could barely get out of their half. Charlton be raging they didn't take those opportunities early on. And then you watch Portsmouth initially take the lead against Crystal Palace, and you thought, okay, this could be interesting. And then suddenly Crystal Palace were notching up the goals, and that goal difference was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like 4 goals away from losing out in this trophy lift, and Portsmouth are banging them in. Like, oh my God. So it was literally until the final whistle, the drama was
Crystal Palace have been on such a good run. They started slow this season. I think just like recovering from going down out of the WSL, getting a new manager in, lots of changes in the club, kind of getting set with her ideas. We all know what Jo Potter can do as a manager. She's a young manager. I think it's really good that we now have 2 young managers as well, female managers, going to be leading they've got their rewards for their work. Mm-hmm. They've got their teams up, and they're going to be able to follow it through in the WSL. So that's huge as well. But yeah, some run that Palace have been on, I think they'll be regretting that they couldn't get things into gear a little bit earlier, because they probably would have gone to win the title.
They're still up though. Doesn't matter.
They're still up.
Doesn't matter.
Big party.
Invest. That's the main thing. Both of you. So we're not going to go into.
Can I just speak about Charlton just quickly?
Go on. I was going to say I don't want to go too in depth on the playoff game yet.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go into in depth.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
I just, the big part of me is just like how much of a job those coaching staff have to do with those players over the next 2 weeks. And when you're thinking about bad runs of momentum, and you'll get 2 teams who have been on these bad runs in terms of Leicester and Charlton.
The mental side is massive.
But for Leicester, they were always sort of behind. So even when they got that 12th spot, and it's been such a tough week and demoralising in many ways, their fate was kind of already written in some way. It was going to be pretty much impossible for themselves. And so they've had a longer time to get accustomed to that.
Yeah.
Charlton were 9 points ahead in mid-March.
They've not had a lead snatched away.
Like they were nailed on pretty much to win that league. And in the last 6 weeks, it's just gone tits up. Sorry, but it has.
Yeah.
And I just think when you, as you said before, when you saw the footage afterwards of the players on the pitch, absolutely devastated.
Which I get, but equally, like...
No, but like but it's that psychological thing of losing the league. And I'm just thinking, how do you pick your players back up? And they've got another chance. They've got another chance.
They've got loads of time.
They've got time, but they're not playing another game.
No, but do you know what though? Maybe they use this time to allow them to feel the disappointment. You've got time to deal with your emotions rather than being like, right, put them all in a box because we got to go again next weekend. You've got time to get through it and, look at Leicester and everyone learning their jobs and knowing what they have to do. So you can look at it both ways. But
and I think there's home advantage as well. They're playing at the Valley. It's going to be a huge game.
Yeah, for a third time in about 3 weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I just think it's going to be a really interesting game because you've got 2 teams who are very low on confidence. But player for player, probably Leicester have the better players in terms of quality and experience.
Right.
I'm not saying...
No, We shall see.
No, just in terms of experience.
Yes,
You know, they've got
sure.
a lot of internationals in there. You've got like the likes of Emily Van Egmond, who's done everything with Australia. Rachel Williams, who's been there and done it all before. I know they kind of had less impact maybe this season than they would have liked, but you still got so much experience to draw on.
We will be at that game because Arsenal lost in the Champions League. Let's move on to that one. Lyon 3, Arsenal 1. It was 4-3 on aggregate. You were at this one, Soph. I was trying to have one eye on that, one eye on my game. But, you know, Lyon the better team on the day.
Lyon were the better team. They deserved the win. Arsenal were exhausted. I think I said to you within the first 10 minutes, or like afterwards, I knew within the first 10 minutes that Arsenal weren't going through. They just looked like they had nothing left.
But
to
also,
give energetically.
Lyon were just like...
Well, no, that's the thing. Lyon came out really fast. Melchi Dumornay, what a player. I do think she's in a shout for Ballon d'Or.
They win Champions
League. If they
League?
win the Champions League, she's phenomenal. And the way that she ran that midfield, and she's so athletic and skillful and just has the vision, you know, to make magical things happen.
Magical Melchi.
Yeah.
Do you remember I got that overhead kick?
For that, yeah. For that pass for the Eula Brand winner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was so inventive. She had no right to do it, and she just sort of dinked it over and got it timed perfectly. And the finish was brilliant as well. So she was the difference maker, and to have her come on completely fresh as well. The other thing, Lyon played their entire B team in midweek.
Arsenal didn't.
Arsenal didn't because they don't have that many players who could. They're still fighting for everything in their league. Lyon have a big lead at the top of the table.
Can I say one thing on that? When you're 3-0 up against Leicester, do you need to bring on Alessia Russo and Mariana Caldente?
So I think...
No.
No.
In my opinion.
Well, no, arguably no. But I do think there are some players that play on rhythm, and maybe when they look back on it, they'll regret those decisions. But for me, Kim Little always plays better when she has games under her belt.
Which I agree, and I think if there was a week and a half or something between games, fine, but it's 3 days. No. A week is rhythm, so I don't think they needed to be played.
Yeah, I think there's there's some players who just do well when they play regularly every game, and sometimes their recovery is by having 45 minutes off rather than 90 minutes off. But I think it's a question that's very valid to be asked. Mariana was just exhausted. She just couldn't run. Kim Little looked out of her depth, and she doesn't often look out of her depth.
I reckon that was like also a tactic from Lyon. Go at them fast and hard, and maybe Arsenal will come back and have a bit of a resurgence in the second half like they so often do. But by that stage, like, it was almost too little too late.
And like I just think the stop-start nature of that first half as well. And just
I'd have thought that had given Arsenal a bit of a break from the
Arsenal are a side who thrive on rhythm and finding their passes and finding those connections, and they just weren't allowed, both by VAR and their own actions, but also by Lyon, to have that kind of rhythm. And Lyon was so professional in terms of the way that they went about the game, approached that kind of game management side of things, and to get that, I mean,
it's great
Arsenal
goal
set pieces.
Great goal from Brand, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thing about the VAR, I'm kind of a bit irked that it's the whole talking point, because it's not like they got any of the decisions wrong. They were right. I think the frustration from the whole thing is how bloody long it takes. And for me, like, I think if there's a penalty, there needs to be a way to, even if it's like 30 seconds, where you just have a quick recheck. Because I know when a goalkeeper saves it, you can kind of go again quickly, but it seems mad to allow the game to restart and then a minute and a half later go, oh, sorry, actually.
So what
happens if you'd scored? If a team had scored?
Yeah, I was really confused about why they didn't just because surely you can spot that off straight away.
That's a pretty easy thing to
So that was, and I think Kim Little was having a right moan at the ref after that, because she was like, we literally went down the other end of the pitch and we had a whole passage of play, and now you're pulling it back because you spotted the encroachment. But
it wasn't off the line,
it was an encroachment of the line. I think I think every decision was correct. I think the one that I had most problem with, and it's the same with when we talk about Barca Bayern, is the referee didn't give the penalty. And
because she didn't deem it a foul.
She didn't deem it a foul. And when I initially saw it, I didn't think it was a foul. Granted, I was up in the gods, but it looked like a challenge, like a fair challenge to me. I think on replay, yes, it was a penalty, but at the same time, was the threshold of a clear and obvious error high enough to relook at it?
Can I ask a question on that? Is it different when it's in the penalty box?
No, because
Okay.
that's when they look at VAR.
Okay.
The whole point of VAR.
No,
is
but I
looking
mean,
at
if
clear
you
and obvious errors.
make a red card challenge, it can be relooked at.
I think Tom Gary said this to me, like, if they had given it as a penalty straight off, VAR would not have intervened to overturn it because it wouldn't have been clear and obvious. And the vice versa kind of
Sure
works. And while it's a really hard one, because I know people will come at me because I'm saying a penalty shouldn't have been given, but I just think in the threshold, if we're asking referees to use their initiative to manage games.
Well, it's a bit like the
Villa Berman.
Yeah, where the reason it didn't come in was because it was the referee's opinion as opposed to it being anyway.
Clear and obvious is subjective, and I think as we'll go into in the Barca-Bayern game,
yes,
I don't think, having seen it back, I don't think VAR should have intervened there because I don't think it was a clear and obvious error.
Ultimately,
in the build-up.
It kind of annoyed me that VAR has been the headline of everything because at the end of the day, they were all correct and Leon won and they deserve to win. So it's a bit like, why is the VAR
and I
the
hope
chat?
I don't attract too many negative comments with saying that, but
you always do.
I think it's
we're just trying to have a discussion about it and
but also I think it's really starting to iron out. I think there has to be a lot of discussions about ironing out how VAR is.
Yeah, because it's had a big impact in a lot of these Champions League games. Both legs of the Chelsea-Arsenal game, there's been VAR controversy.
And it's
of it not being used, of it being used, of it not being used, of it missing things, of a clear thing and a clear mistake and not being used in a red card situation. Like, there's been a lot of issues.
The whole experience in the stadium, you don't have a clue what's happening. When you're watching in the stands, like in press, and you have screens, Disney, or I'm sure at home, Disney don't show the replays. They show the initial replay and then the whole VAR period, they're just watching the ref. And you're like, can't we at least see what they're looking at as a viewer so that we can
at least
come
on the
to a
TV.
conclusion? And then we don't see it again until half-time or something. Yeah. It's just, hard.
Anyway, Lyon are through to another Champions League final, deservedly so, and they will be facing Barcelona, who beat Bayern 4-2, which was 5-3 on aggregate. This one looked to have potentially gotten away from Bayern, and they kind of kept chipping back in and maybe having a fingernail still on the game. And when Pernilla Harder scored near the end, and it looked like they'd gotten it was a 4-3, and you're kind of thinking, oh my God, how's this last bit going to pull out? And then VAR intervened to say that there was a foul in the build-up. And I guess what you're talking about there is that, again, is an opinion situation where the referee didn't deem it a foul and therefore VAR shouldn't have got involved because it's not clear and obvious error. But needless to say, Barcelona...
I also don't think it was that much of a foul.
Well, Barcelona, again, deserved winners. I think Bayern can be proud of the performance. I think a lot of us thought they were going to get swept away by Barcelona, given how they'd come together in the league stages, but I think they can be pretty proud of their performance.
Yeah, I think it was slightly emblematic of their season, or their team at the moment, Bayern Munich, where they can be pretty shoddy defensively, and some of the defending for some of those goals was not great. But they have an attack that can get in behind and, attack Barcelona's high line, and that shows Barcelona's weakness in those moments. And when you're thinking about the final, that's going to be something surely that Lyon will be looking to exploit, because when you have the likes of Dumornay, Diani, Basha being able to, I know she plays at fullback, but being able to run and stretch defences and stuff, that's going to be, and Eula Brand, I think that's going to be a key area that they'll focus on.
Very exciting final.
I still think Barcelona will win.
The reason we're not going is because work is taking us elsewhere. And we would have gotten work if an English team had been in the final, but it would have been a lot of money for something that we wouldn't have got work from. And I would like to do
very many iterations of Lyon Barcelona in our time, and
but I want to go to the first playoff. We were raging that the playoff was on the same day,
so it just gives us that opportunity to do that.
Well, one eye on that, and one eye. Actually, I think we'll be able to do the playoff and then watch the Champions League final. What a lovely day of football that'll be. Okay, we're at the end, Stoph. So you need to give me a player of the week. I know. Actually, do you know what we didn't talk about? Under-17s kicked off their Euros campaign in Belfast in Larne actually, against the hosts Northern Ireland. A good game, deserved winners England. But I actually thought Northern Ireland did very well defensively to make it difficult for England to break them down.
Yeah, they set up in a back five and looked to kind of hit England on the counter-attack.
Which sometimes, bloody hell.
In the second half, they pressed up a bit and had a few opportunities to run in on goal. Yeah, England looked good. I think it was a lot of, it's quite new coach, kind of her first... she's been in charge for this campaign, but it's her first Euros. New players coming in, it's some of their first Euros as well. And is just about, getting those first day nerves out of the way. It's a lot when you are representing England at a major tournament. They had a good qualifying campaign. They won all 6 of their games across the 2 rounds. I think they scored 17 goals, but they only kept 2 clean sheets. So the defensive side have maybe been something to work on. So I think a lot of pride will be taken that they kept that clean sheet.
Shout out to the Northern Ireland goalkeeper, by the way.
Yeah, she was brilliant. She's 14 years old.
What?
Yes.
That save she made at the death, where she kind of dived backwards, really brave save, as both a defender and an England attacker were coming in. She'd kind of made the initial save and it bounced up and she went backwards and dived onto it.
You got a great photo of it.
Such a good work.
So she's 14 years old. So I think for Northern Ireland, they came into this, they were in League B, obviously qualified because of being hosts. But in round 2, they won all 3 of their League B games and are promoted to League A next season. So they've got that to look forward to. And obviously when you're playing in your home country, and they sold out the allocation at LAN yesterday, it was 800 and something, turned up. Some loud supporters from both sides, I think. So good support. Is their first time, a lot of young kids there playing in their first competition for their country. It's huge.
I've just been so impressed the last, few iterations we've seen of under 17s, under 19s, particularly under 17s, of how structured, and it's not just England, how structured these youth teams are. It's in the past there was kind of elements of a bit of ball watching, a bit of ball chasing, but they're so well structured. I was chatting to them afterwards about having to break down the mid block and all that kind of stuff. I just listening, I could hear the goalkeeper and the defence talking to each other from Northern Ireland during the game, and just to be there, it just feels like this age group across the board are levels above now, and it's super impressive.
I think this might be my 6th or 7th under 17s Euros. And in that time, it's just changed, tactically changed so much, and physically as well. The players are so
you wouldn't know some of them were.
A lot of the players for England are playing in the Arsenal Academy or other academies, and they're getting good football at under 21 level at their age. When like Phoebe de Bohan, who scored the brace, she's 16 years old.
Could have scored more.
So she's playing well for her club, and she's getting those opportunities to really develop, I think. And it's just, I was sat next to the analyst for the Northern Ireland team who was speaking. I could hear her speaking down to the touchline. That didn't happen when I went to my first one. They didn't have those kind of resources or staff, and
it was a huge
imagine
number.
how many England have. I was sat next to one. England are well resourced. The amount of input and investment and resources into these youth levels has been huge.
There was a huge number of Northern Ireland staff sat in the stands in front of you as well.
Scottish.
Oh, was it that's the Scottish team?
Yeah, we were trying to figure out why.
Me too, because I was like, is that their... I was obviously down the other end of the pitch, but I was like, is that their uniform? Because that's not England's uniform. Who's that in the large group?
Because Scotland haven't qualified. I think it was a whole load of coaches who were coming to learn
that's so good.
Off the game. So, yeah, whole horde, there was 20 of them in their Scottish gear coming to learn from the game.
There's Norway and Germany next in that group, by the way, which will be taking place. This week. You might be getting out to a second game.
I'm going out on Sunday.
Deadly. Okay, now we can get on to your player of the week.
My player of the week, I think, will go to Melchi Dumoni, because seeing the impact that she had, and watching her live, watching watching players live just gives you a whole different experience.
But some players, when you watch them live, you just kind of get a bit like...
It's like that, when you fall in love with football, that kind of magic about a footballer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think she has every single quality to become one of, if not the best footballer in the world.
Love that.
And she changed that game. I think without her, Lyon wouldn't have done what they did.
Okay, shine a spotlight on...
I'm going to go Rico Icke goal. The goal. I mean, she got the assist as well for the second one, but I think just the touch and the finish. I'm so pleased for her because she works so hard for that West Ham team, but she often doesn't get on the end of things in front of goal. She's like she does so much work in the build-up without getting the recognition up front. And for her to score that special goal, she did quite well at the Asian Cup as well. She's in a good vein of form at the moment. And Rhiannon Skinner always spoke about the quality that she brought to the team. And I think you're starting to really see it in front of goal as well as
in and around
everything else.
Okay, any other business? We've got the FA Cup semi-finals coming up this weekend. Both are on Sunday. And then Aston Villa are taking on Arsenal on Saturday. So we're going to be at that game. I'm going to do the Chelsea City game, and you're going to be back over in Coleraine for England versus Germany.
making it just England, Norway.
Oh, I thought it was
Germany is
Germany
on
next.
Thursday, which we can't do because we're at the Women's Football Awards. But yeah, England, Norway, the final game. Hopefully, they get to a semi-final.
We're working those, by the way, which is why we're doing those over the fixture.
Otherwise,
Gotta go where the work is. All right, make sure you follow us so you don't miss any of the coverage. Otherwise, we will chat to you next week when we know our FA Cup finalists. See you then.